All right, we are busting the 15-minute rule today. We are in search of sanity for as long as we damn well please. Every week on this podcast, we step back from the headlines and the outrage and the algorithms in search of sanity in a world gone completely mad. Today, it's In Search of Sanity, the interview. As always, I'm Mark Wilson. Please say hello to my co-host, my friend, author, provocateur, ginaholic, fancy pants Brit, Clive Pinder, everybody.
Good afternoon, Mark, and thank you for welcoming me back. The listeners will remember I was a little worried that I might not get back into the country last week, but I
You
just
made it.
snuck. I snuck in with the Iranian football team,
Of course you
and
did.
yeah. So that was
We're doing an interview today, and I couldn't be more excited about having this guy in.
Jordan Cunningham is our guest. Uh, why is Jordan our first guest? Well, apart from the fact that we know him to be an incredibly good bloke and local politician. But actually, most importantly, we asked Jordan to be here because he's actually one of the few politicians I know who is sane. And so here we are. We've actually found sanity on In Search of Sanity. Jordan, welcome to the show, first of all, before I read your bio, because many of our listeners will not know who the hell you are, which I'll explain in a minute. But first, thanks for coming on our show.
Of course. Tell me more about the ginaholic thing. What's your favorite gin?
I drink across the range.
Just as long as you avoid plastic bottles. That is the rule.
Oh,
Anything
well,
that comes in a plastic bottle,
well,
vodka or gin, will
Well,
destroy
wait a
you.
minute. Wait a minute. In a pinch, I'll take a plastic bottle.
that's all we get on the aircraft. Just brief background to Jordan. Jordan was Deputy District DA in San Luis Obispo County. He founded his own law group, which he practices now with his wife. He was a trustee of the Templeton Unified School District, which is one of the best school districts here in SLO County. He was the president, or maybe still is the president, of the Central Coast Taxpayers Association, which if you pay tax in California, you know how important that is. Most importantly for this show, Jordan was elected, I believe, in 2016 as the California State Assemblyman for District 35. Well, I guess didn't run again in 2022. We'll probably touch on why that is. I can assure you it wasn't because he wasn't popular with his voters in the original district he ran in, but suffice it to say he was effectively gerrymandered out, and being the smart man he is, decided not to piss in the wind and actually go off and do something useful, which is now he also has his own CM Public Affairs company, and is also chair of the SLO County Lincoln Club, and we'll come back to that in a minute as well. Jordan, have I ticked all the boxes?
That's pretty good. I
Awesome.
gave up the Taxpayers Association when I got elected to the Assembly. So that
Okay.
one has dropped off the roster.
Okay.
And early law career, I started at a big international law firm in San Francisco and then Washington, D.C. And then I worked in the federal government for 3 years in D.C. I was clerking for a couple of federal judges, and I worked for the U.S. Department of Justice, and then moved back home where I grew up in San Luis Obispo County. I moved back home in 2010 with, at the time, three little kids. Now we have four that aren't so little. And that's when I joined the DA's office.
I've always
So-
wondered about that. I look at any politician, and particularly if you're working at the state level or the federal level in particular. If you've got a family, that's got to be really tough because you're never home, right? Or I mean, you're home sometimes, but it's got to be enormously difficult on the family.
Well, there's a reason every politician, when they speak in public, if their spouse is there, they're thanking their spouse and having them stand up so everybody can clap. Okay. Like, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot on your family. If you go to DC, I was serving in Sacramento, so I was driving. But if you go to DC, you're from California, you're flying cross country and you're doing it 3 weeks out of every 4, basically. And, if you can't take your family with you, that's why I think a lot of people in Congress just end up moving their family there so they can spend quality time with them.
Or sleep in their office. I've seen guys do that too. There's still a couple of guys, I
Yeah,
think.
but it's definitely, I think, serving at that level of, uh, state or federal office, like you really have to be intentional about how you prioritize your time when you're at home.
Can I ask
Otherwise,
real quick?
it's
I'm sorry, Clive. I've sort of
No. You go right
yeah.
ahead.
I'm wondering if is that one of the reasons. I mean, you're clearly not running for anything again. Is one of the reasons that it just really is that difficult on the family, and you just had enough of it?
well, it's a couple things. I mean, as Clive mentioned, I got essentially my seat got carved up in redistricting. So I didn't. The last time I ran in 2020, I got reelected by about 10 points, is 55-45. My district by party registration was Dem +4. And, I was out kicking the coverage pretty good there. I mean, Trump lost my district by 13 points. I mean,
Yeah.
so it was truly a purple district, but one where I had assembled a good coalition, sort of grown my numbers over time, and I'd like to think the voters thought I was doing a good job. But the new seat I would have had to run for after the census redistricting uh, was up the coast of Monterey. It only had some parts of SLO County where I live, all the way up into southern Santa Cruz, and it was like going to be, I think, a Dem +20. And coastal Democrats don't cross over to vote Republican. Like they would vote for a dead dog over a Republican. So there's not like
In
there
fact,
wasn't a viable.
they'd
Yeah.
probably think most Republicans were dead dogs. But
Yeah,
yeah,
or are in disguise or something.
But
Yeah.
has it
But
always been that way? I mean, has it, or is it just a recent thing in the last decade or 10, 20 years that a
I
Democrat
think
would
it's
just there's no way?
not every Democrat. I'm saying coastal affluent Democrats. They do not cross
Okay,
over.
okay.
Working class Latino Democrats are a lot more in play. Like I won 50% on average of the city of Santa Maria, which is 75% Latino. I mean, you can go take a message of, good schools, safe communities, get things done, kitchen table issues, and you can do fine as a Republican if you go meet voters where they're at, right? Some of that's, we were always run Spanish language radio ads for a reason, right? But especially older voters, which tend to be more affluent in California, people that can afford a home on a coastline tend to be affluent, and they tend to be Democrats, and they tend to, not uh, cross over to vote for Republicans. How it works, but I think overall we've seen politics got more polarized in the 6 years I was in office. Like I watched it happen. Like I ran. Trump won was my first ballot, my first race in 16. Then my last race was Trump and Biden. And so, for the three general elections, I was on the ballot. Like, and social media, I think drives that. Just sort of general appeal to party base, like the sort of the federal presidential level drives a lot of what's kind of going on and percolates down. Um, both parties have been sort of a cycle since I'd say about 2016, maybe even before, where they're fighting over the 50-yard line and they're going to try to gin up support and get their base turned out and win 51-49. And when you take that approach to uh, the national level, the presidential level, which is what people pay the most attention to and what the most money spent on, that definitely, I think, creates a tribalistic kind of effect. And the social media thing has supercharged that too. I mean, people are literally just being shown news that they already agree with. Like that's like there's a huge portion of the population that never sees something said or written by somebody that's got a different viewpoint than.
thank you for setting that up perfectly. We do send our guests discussion topics, but Jordan doesn't
I'm
know what we're.
terrible about staying on topic.
No,
Just to warn
not
you,
at
I
all.
am.
No. That's perfect because you have just set up the show. I didn't send you the headline of the show. I should also tell you that about half of our audience is actually I like to say English, but I should say British. So they're going to find you a strange animal. To put it in context, if you think California is the fifth largest GDP in the world, basically Jordan was like an MP to a country the size of Britain, with slightly fewer people, but an incredibly influential politician. Jordan's just explained why we asked him on, because he's a Republican GOP that won a Democrat district by +10. That means, he way outperformed. So he's exactly the sort of politician we want to talk to, because here on In Search of Sanity, we are definitely anti any sort of blatant partisanship. And in fact, that's what the show's going to be about today. We titled the show, Jordan, California Republicans, Endangered or Almost Extinct? ? We thought you might be a good person to have that conversation with. The first guest we had in our hour-long slot was Steve Hilton, and I'm sure we'll touch on him in a minute. The prospective won the primary, prospective candidate for governor. But I just
you went from Steve Hilton, candidate for governor, to me. That's a bit of a downgrade, boys.
Well, no, we had a word with Steve, and he said, look, he's going to run 2 terms. He can't run for president because he's not an American, because he wasn't born here. And then we actually mentioned your name, and he thought you'd be a great successor. So you got like two Steve Hilton terms to get ready to become governor of California. I mean, if you come on the In Search of Sanity show, governor's not a long step from there.
That was after they'd had 10, 12 gin and tonics, but
It would take a lot more than 10 or 12 to get me to run for governor. Sorry.
Well, isn't that half the problem? All the good guys don't want to run for governor. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that Steve isn't a good guy. You guys can make that up for yourself. But seriously, I, as we say, I've tried to stop swearing, but for the life of me, and by the way, I am no fan of Donald Trump. As Jordan will know, I have serious question marks about how smart MAGA is in terms of, when I was a politician and nowhere near as important as Jordan, I always said in politics, it's 10% principle, 90% pragmatism. As a politician, you have to decide whether you want to be right or make a difference. Seems to me that MAGA are only interested in being right, whether that gets them elected or not. And if you ain't in power, you're not making much of a difference. So for the life of me, I don't understand how California can effectively be a one-party state for at least a generation when it wasn't, it was a few years before that Arnold Schwarzenegger was a very popular president. So, Jordan, first question to you, how did the state get here? I mean, how did a state as important as California effectively a one-party state? It holds every major lever of power in the state. And does the GOP have a plan to come back from their near-death experience?
Well, that's probably got to have a bit of a historical lens on that, right? Like some of it is changing demographics. And during COVID, it even accelerated because you see predominantly older retirees that are leaving the state for low tax states, for red states, for cheaper states. Those tend to be more conservative or Republican, or at least open to voting for Republican type voters. Because Republicans do pretty well with old people across America, including California, right? They're replaced by younger voters that are largely, heavily Latino, especially in certain parts of California, that do not have any latent affinity with the Republican Party. In fact, if anything, they register independent, but they lean left, or they registered predominantly Democrat. So you've got this continuing effect where people that are leaving the state are the folks open to voting for more conservative politicians. I'll put it that way. The people that are kind of growing up in the state are people that Republicans have to go convince. And there's a couple hurdles there in convincing them to be before they're open to voting for Republicans. So you've had that effect going on for, I don't know, 30 years, 20 years. And that makes it tough because the GOP is like, we're doing well right now to even hold our registration numbers where they've been the last 4 years. Like there was backsliding for the 10 years before that. So, the ground's always changing underneath you. And uh, sometimes those demographic things they're sort of data points that are hiding in plain sight, but they're real. So that's one thing that's tough. I do think Arnold was an aberration. I think he's one of the most famous people in the world. Like if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger and you run for governor of California, you do not have to spend a single dollar uh, promoting your name. Like his name ID is like universal, right? It was just part of Trump's actual one of his secrets to success, if you want to call it that too. Like if you're already famous and you get into politics, like this is a state of 38, 39 million people with some of the most expensive media markets in the whole country. It's super expensive until you like have the money to be on television and become well known. Like look at all these guys who just ran for governor in California on the Democratic side, right? One of my former colleagues, a friend of mine, Ian Calderon, he was majority leader in the assembly when I was there. Didn't run. He left 2 years before I did. He's been doing consulting, raising family. He runs for governor. Like this guy's one of the most powerful people in Sacramento. And he was polling at 1% because like nobody's heard of him. So a guy like Arnold Schwarzenegger just comes in from the side with like damn near 100% name ID. And then all he's got to do is convince people that he's got a better message than the other guy, right? And he ran at a recall too. So I would say Arnold, I like his brand of Republicanism. I'm a big fan. And I voted for him as many times as I could when he was running for governor because he did get reelected twice. He won the recall and then won 2 reelections. And I think he took the Republican brand in California in a much more like environmental direction, which is kind of where the voters in California were at and are at, actually. Although cost of living issues become increasingly important here. So Arnold's a bit of an outlier, but the underlying demographic trends are not in Republicans' favor here. And then the other thing that's tough is when you have a single party controlling the state, they have all the union money, they have all the corporate money, they have all the rich people money for the most part. Like, and it's sort of like they own Sacramento, and it's hard to go out and win elections like one assembly district at a time, one state senate district at a time, when all of these races are absolute knife fights in the close seats. Like mine, my elections weren't as close as I thought they'd be, but they were. I got outspent in 2 of the 3 elections by a lot, like 2.5 to 1. Every time the Republicans, even if we do really well on fundraising, and we have made some changes and are doing better than we've ever done, and I do think Steve Helton's going to help us because I think he will drive interest at the top of the ticket, which is important. But I mean, we're killing ourselves to fundraise to just have like 1/4 of what the Democrats have in their budgets, right? And all that money is going into the same 10 or 12 competitive seats because every other election's like a foregone conclusion. So it's tough. I mean, the old adage, money's the mother's milk of politics, is very true. Like if the voters are hearing 4 times from one guy or gal to every 1 time they're hearing from you, it's hard to persuade them of anything or drive a message. So, that's where, I mean, I think you see like California in some ways maybe is sort of like the inverse of Texas, where Texas is sort of one party controlled, but it's by Republicans. And when that party's got all of the advantages in terms of winning elections and the electoral campaign side of the world. In some sense, like, I mean, California arguably shows it doesn't matter how poorly you govern. Like, if you have that much of an advantage, you know.
Well,
I mean,
that's yeah,
Newsom got reelected by 20 points,
yeah.
and going into that reelection, his approval rating was upside down.
Yeah, I don't
So
understand that. And I was going to ask you to rate Schwarzenegger as a governor? How did he
I'd say
do?
overall pretty well. Um, I'd rank him up there with this is all non-ideological, I assume. Just
Sure. Yeah.
how did he do?
For
I
the state
thought
of
him and
California, take the politics or take the Republican out of it, take the party out of it rather. And just as a governor of the state of California, how did he do for the people of California overall?
I think he was pretty good, and I think actually Jerry Brown was pretty good. I'd take
Really?
I'd rate them personally, I'd rate them both considerably higher than Newsom.
What did you like about Jerry
I
Brown?
mean, he sought compromise. He could listen to other people's opinions. When he wanted something done, he didn't just try to executive order it. He went and tried to get legislators to vote for it and enact it. So in that sense, he sort of like empowered democracy to work um, in a way that I haven't really seen from his successor.
And we're talking about
And
the same
also
guy, right?
Brown, yeah,
Governor
yeah. Well, no,
Mooney.
I mean, under totally. I understand. I mean, I worked with him, right? He was the governor the first 2 years I was there, and he was very good to me. He was very good to my district. But the other thing Brown did, I think, I give him poor marks on criminal justice stuff. He had some real wacky, soft on crime kind of ideas that I don't think did well for our state. But um, he was fairly fiscally responsible. I mean, for a Democrat, I mean, he's not a tax cutter. I mean, he's not like a, but he established a rainy day fund, right? Like our state budget, if he had not done that and gotten the voters to enact it by initiative and put his own money and name behind it, getting the voters to do that in a ballot initiative, the first time we'd had a mild recession, like our state would have been, badly in the red, like badly. So, I mean, so it's stuff like that where Browns did some like good government stuff that I think, was 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 good and set this. He also like by the time I knew him, like I wasn't even around for. I was born '77, so I don't know. Was I even alive when he was governor the first time? I'm not sure when he served exactly.
Well, he
When he
was
got the
dating
nickname Moonbeam, right? And
Linda
then
Ronstadt in the
yeah,
70s. You probably were on the yeah, maybe just on
tail
the
end of
back
that.
end. Yeah,
Wait a
yeah.
minute. Jordan Cunningham is the love child of Brown and Linda Ronstadt. Is that what you were suggesting there, Mark?
Who? What? No, no. I'm saying he
Well,
dated
maybe
and
that.
then wasn't he had another big star as a girlfriend or wife. I don't remember. And then I never
He
got
did,
that. He didn't
and
seem like
he
he was charismatic, to be honest with you. I mean, and he's not that good looking. And is he rich?
Mark's just jealous.
Yeah, I want to hang out with
he's
Linda Ronstadt. She's 85.
well back in the day though. I mean,
Well,
I
back in
think
the day.
he was famous and powerful and probably reasonably rich. I mean, but Brown part two though he was different. He was more philosophical. He tried to run for president 4 times. It never worked. Like he was just like, you know what? I'm going to be the best governor I can be, and I don't have ambitions on a higher office any longer. And I think that is where any elected official can be the most effective when you're like, I am in this job for whatever time period the voters give me, or whatever time period term limits give me, or whatever it is. And I'm giving 110% to this job. And
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
trying to set up something else. Right.
I seem to remember him as a reasonable person, a reasonable politician, and just a reasonable and reasonably likable. He wasn't a superstar, as I recall, but
Yeah. And Brown would have these other moments where he'd say things that were just kind of refreshing to hear in like Sacramento. Like somebody, he was known for being a big environmental guy and, you know, big on climate change and things of that sort. But yeah, somebody would introduce a bill that wanted to ban the internal combustion engine by 2035 or whatever. And he'd be like, no, we're not doing that. People need to drive cars. They need to get around. He's like, what are you
common
guys
sense.
sending me? Like, I don't, yeah. Whereas, his successor Newsom, like, did an internal combustion engine ban in 2035 by executive order, which is like 4 ways from Sunday unconstitutional, and it wouldn't even take effect till he was long out of office. So it's like that's a difference I would point to in their styles.
and nobody wants it.
Can we actually
No.
just, in terms of digging down into that, you've again, thank you for setting up what we really wanted to talk about. I mean, there are two things that I can't get my head around. I mean, again, I need to be clear that I am not advocating for voting for the GOP per se. In fact, we'll talk a little later. I mean, I think one of the problems is we have a two-party state, and it makes it very difficult to. I don't know how you break partisan politics, given what you've just explained and how the mechanics are, the reality of voting is. But I cannot, for the life of me, understand how a state of what 15 million voters can sit there and that the chance of them changing their minds on the party that has ruled this state for 15 years. I mean, I'm just going to read this out. I mean, worst in class outcomes, best in class win rate. I just don't get it. The highest poverty state rate in the nation, tied with Louisiana, largest homeless population of any state, highest unemployment of any state, highest gas prices, highest electricity prices, highest top income tax in the country, worst net out migration of any state. In other words, people are leaving, and most of those, the people with the money, a bullet train now at about $127 billion going nowhere. I mean, yes, we're still the number one state economy in the country and a top 5 to 6 global economy. But, the gap between health and wealth, health inequality, wealth inequality, I mean, everything that people seem to care for, we are in the bottom quintile. And yet nobody can conceive of anybody but the Democrats winning, in November of this year. Help me understand why is one party so powerful? And we'll come on to talk about why is the GOP so bad? And that people put up with the worst outcomes pretty much. I mean, it's just, it's in my mind, it's unacceptable with the wealth and the money and the genius. I mean, we're the most creative place on the planet, pretty much, and yet we just seem to put up with these disgraceful outcomes, and the people that suffer most are the poorest and most vulnerable.
Yeah, I
Got it.
mean, you are probably.
I'm depressed now too. Thank you.
I mean, when you put it that way, yeah. But we got
Hey,
sunshine and wine, so that's
And
Um,
gin.
every time I do a
and
podcast, I start out fine, and by the time I'm done, I want to hang myself. Thanks a lot for the statistics there.
uh, you
Well, I
know,
mean,
it's like, well, you're kind of. I think you're presupposing voters are rational in how they vote, and they obviously they aren't all rational, and large blocks of voters uh, aren't voting based on like outcomes necessarily. They're voting based on values, and then we can't delink what's happening in California with what's happening on the federal level, right? So the Democrats, very easy, as bad as somebody can argue the Democrats are doing running our state, like look at Adam Schiff, got elected U.S. Senate, basically running against Trump. Newsom when he was, in trouble briefly with the recall, like uh, this governor Becerra, right? He just made top two, basically running ads,
He fails
bragging
us.
about how much he's
He
yeah,
fails
how much
upward.
he sued Donald Trump, right? So where you've got an unpopular president in California, not everywhere, not in certain pockets, Trump does fine, but overall, Trump's approval in California is abysmally bad. And you can escape responsibility for what would be the electoral consequences of your own misgovernment or mismanagement of government by just pointing the finger at somebody else, saying, "Hey, I'm," and that seems to be a playbook that is still working for the Democrats in this state.
I got to tell you, though,
I imagine Becerra will run fewer ads attacking Steve Hilton than he will run ads attacking Donald Trump.
but I got to tell you, and maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just missing something. And I don't think I live in a media silo. In fact, I tried to get outside of it as often as I can. It's one of the better things about me. Um,
there are so many good things about you, Mark.
um, But why is it that I feel like I know a lot more about the Democratic platforms in the state of California? I mean, I know where they want to go. I know where Newsom wants to go, and I don't really feel like I do the GOP. And I don't know if that's bad messaging or whether I'm not paying attention or whether they just aren't distinguishing themselves and setting themselves apart. Now, I will say that Hilton has done a pretty good job when he got into the no income tax on up to $100,000, and then he went to 150. I mean, I'm getting some of the things that he wants to do, but ordinarily, I don't feel like I am. I don't feel like the GOP goes to the hoop hard on me in an election cycle. And
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, the California Republican Party, like the state GOP, is the Republicans in California are very decentralized. Like a lot of the powers with the central committees at the county level, and it's sort of like it flows up. And then there's every year at a convention, they elect a chair. And then when you have a good chair, good and somebody that's like a good spokesperson, can raise money well, things of that nature, then the chair may have an opportunity to kind of drive a quote unquote Republican message and cut through all the other noise that's out there. But uh, in a gubernatorial cycle, it's not a surprise to me to hear you say you're hearing more from Steve Hilton. Well, Steve Hilton just spent $4 or $5 million on ads, right? I mean, so the California Republican Party is not spending that or anything close to that to
but
drive any kind of message into your ears.
but is it also ideas? I don't feel like the GOP, even if they had the money, even if they, I don't know that they're, other than low taxes, limited government. It's the same message over and over again. It's not sexy enough.
Well, I think Hilton will, every time you've got a decently funded gubernatorial candidate, it's an opportunity to shape the image of the party. And I think that's where Hilton will be pretty helpful this year because I think he's on a message that actually appeals to people that are struggling to make ends meet. And those are the voters that have to be reached.
I agree with you, and he's also saying some different things. He's not
Mhm.
afraid to get out and offend the old school, my father's Republican Party that was really super, super conservative. Because I think
Well, and
the Republicans, and agree with me or not, Jordan, they feel like they're a little more moderate now.
I think he doesn't talk about social issues much. And, but, I was in a district where, like, if I would tell my campaign team, my consultants, like, or my consultant would tell me before I really knew what I was doing, hey, if you're talking about social issues, you're losing. Like, you don't want to talk about those. Like, they're divisive amongst even Republicans, like, abortion, marriage equality, things of that nature. Like, that is not something I can go into even a room of diehard voting Republicans. And the minute I open my mouth, even the death penalty, right? Whereas you can talk about it's too expensive here, our taxes are too high, media is a bunch of bums that are out to get us. I mean, there are unifying messages in any room of Republicans. Those do not in California include social issues. So why be talking about something that divides your base and probably unites the other team's base? That's not smart political strategy, right? And I think Hilton has done a relatively good job of that so far in the primary and the beginnings here of the general election. I think he's gotten that memo. Like those aren't winners for us. If we're going to win, we need to be on kitchen table issues, stuff that quality of the schools, the cost of living, inflation, jobs, like all of the sort of kitchen table things that uh, where Democrats really don't have a good record to run on, and Republicans probably do have something to offer that's different and better. We've seen like we had made it so difficult to build anything in this state, whether it's a power plant or a housing community or even one freaking house. Like we have made it
Oh yeah,
impossible
yeah.
to build by driving the costs up. And then they turn around and wonder why we've got the least affordable state. And then they want to tax everybody into oblivion on top of it. So
So I just I just want to push back on it. Well, I've got some facts to support it, but I wonder if part of the problem, I mean, we'll come on to, you mentioned something about the brand of republicanism. It, it ain't a brand. It's not a single brand. I mean, it is because everybody brands republicanism as Trump, and MAGA, and before that, the Tea Party. Um, you know, most of my family in this county and many of my Republican friends, they are not fans of Donald Trump. Um, a lot of will so and I think authenticity is an issue here because my sense is that if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all of the bottom of the pyramid, the Democrats are clearly failing on. You can't get a house, you can't afford this, you can't. But once you get up to the top of that triangle, self-actualization and that sort of thing is, I don't, I guess what apart from Jesus Christ, what are the Republicans passionate about emotionally? And the one area that I think is a social issue where the Republicans should be making hay on is transgender issues. I mean, there's a clear majority of Californians do not want to see men playing in women's sports, men using, but males, should I say, so we can be very clear, males playing in female sports, males changing in females, but the Republicans have completely blown that. So, or am I just being incredibly unfair and
Well,
naive?
no, I don't know that it's fair to say they've completely blown that. I mean, Republicans have sort of like led the charge trying to stop those bills. They've sort of called it out. At the federal level, they're like through federal bureaucracy and lawsuits, they're trying to change and reverse state policies. And I think you're right. People, the huge majority of Americans, the last poll I saw was like 82% of Americans do not think biological males should play against biological females in sports. And if you don't share that opinion, I truly wonder how much time you've spent around sports. Like, I think the
Yeah,
answer is
exactly.
probably zero. Okay.
Exactly.
And I had 2 daughters and 2 sons, and they
You
all
don't have a
played
daughter
sports
either,
at
yeah.
different levels. And I can tell you, like, you get a bunch of dudes out there playing against, high school girls or college girls, and like you've destroyed women's sports. Like, it's over. Like, you can't have it's so, yeah, the Dems have gone too far with a lot of that stuff. And that probably is if you want to call that a social issue, it's probably fair to call it a social issue. That's one where I think Republicans are on offense. And uh, they've, you know, I think largely they're succeeding because I think you're seeing those policies change, and you're seeing
Change, yeah,
California
full.
just get more and more sort of
Right.
isolated and out there. But you can't just, unless you have the majority of both houses of the legislature and a governor that's not going to veto the bill. I mean, if this stuff was enacted with bills that these, crazy Democrats cram through, and like, you can't just undo it overnight. Like, somebody's got to sue and get it overturned, or you have to go get the majorities back and get the governor's mansion back and then undo it, right?
But even
So
if you come, but
suing becomes a lot easier, by the way, than
but even
the latter.
locally, I mean, locally at the school board level, where this thing is really, again, I mean, our local school districts are both Democrat majority. I mean, it's clearly a winning ticket because we have a school board member here who is, I mean, I think a radical proponent of getting rid of females in male sports and vice versa. But I don't. I mean, that seems to me to be such a cut through issue. But I don't. Is it? Maybe it is just Donald Trump is the millstone around the GOP's neck here in
Well,
California.
it's interesting because if you look at his polling, as I mentioned, it is not great, but there are districts he's helpful in. The assembly picked up 2 seats that were like in the last election cycle that were Dem plus 12, and I think one was Dem plus 14, heavily Latino in the San Bernardino County, Riverside County, like Inland Empire area. And Trump outperformed in those districts compared to when he ran in 2020. So, I mean, he did better in 2024 than he did in 2020 or 2016 in those areas. Um, you're seeing a large tectonic shift of the coalitions underlying the two major parties across America, and California is not immune to that shift either. The Republicans are becoming more of a working class, middle class party, and the Democrats are becoming more of the barbell party, which is people at high income and people at very low income. And so California just happens to be hollowing out a lot of the people in the middle by them moving, right? So, the replenishment number, we lose potential uh, Republicans all the time, and uh, in part because of these policies. I mean, the uh, single party rule has really gotten uh, the Democrat Party in California is like, it's this weird conundrum because like these policies they pursued, which have driven tons of people out and made it the least affordable state, like some of the worst schools, the worst roads, and everything else. Those policies continue to drive more people out, which makes it harder to change who's in power.
Right.
It's an
So,
interesting death spiral,
d-
if you want to call it
yeah,
that.
I mean, on a just one more thing on this, and then perhaps move on to some more general things. Is You mentioned it earlier, this brand position. I mean, there is a schism in my mind, and maybe I'm overstating this, between what I would call the sort of moderate Republicans, the Lincoln Club, who are a national organization, and what is today was MAGA, and earlier on before Trump was the Tea Party. Is is that an issue that you see as a problem, and you speak as the chair of the Lincoln Club?
I mean, I think they serve different roles. I mean, I think the sort of San Luis Obispo County Republican Party's much more activist. There's a lot of passion there. If you're trying to field a bunch of volunteers to operate a phone bank for voter turnout or voter ID calls or walk precincts, like you're going to get that from the activists that the Central Committee can, summon to action, right? And you need that in campaigns, especially if you want, to have a good ground game, right? And the Lincoln Club, our board's largely, it's like half former and current elected officials. So it's sort of, it's got a different purpose and kind of a different vibe to it, if you will. I mean, we're more like, okay, let's find and recruit electable candidates, and we're going to win the most local elections if we find and recruit and fund the most electable candidates for that particular office, right? So it's got a little bit more of a pragmatic bent to it, I would say. But I don't think it's not necessarily a schism. It's just sort of like two different organizations and groups operating in two different spheres. And there is some overlap, but not always. I do think Republicans, I'd say this is kind of true nationally too, like post 9/11, the global war on terror. I mean, there are certain things that sort of happened in my adult lifetime where like Republicans were just sort of naturally united, and we have not, those issues, they're not at the fore anymore, and sort of other things take place where Republicans are less united, and there's just and Trump, what he does just in terms of raw political skill, what he does really well is drive the message on immigration and get people to show up to vote. I mean, Trump is pretty good, even in large places of California, at like driving turnout. I mean, we've seen the highest turnout elections ever, and maybe some of that's just because how divisive he is. So he also drives turnout for the other team.
Ain't that the truth?
But
Yeah.
but the last presidential election was the highest turnout election in the history of California.
Yeah.
Like,
Mark,
like
any I'm dominating questions here. Any thoughts? Any different ideas you'd like to talk about?
No, I just want to make sure I get in my lightning round at the very end.
Okay.
I'll
You have a lightning round?
yeah,
Excellent.
I got a bunch of questions, and Jordan must answer each question within, I'll give him 10 seconds on
Okay.
each question.
All right. Good. I've got
I
some.
would ask
I
though, and this is a
Yeah.
simple question, just a really simple question, just based on what I've been hearing you talk about now about California and the mass exodus and the kind of issues that we're having here in California. As Mr. Hilton called it, it's Californability, affordability. I'm sorry, Californability. I can't even say it. Uh,
And you don't sound anything like him either, but you're going to have to work on that accent, Mark.
and so here's what I would ask: if a young family, Jordan, were to come to you tomorrow and ask whether they should build their future here in California, what would you tell
Can I? It depends on the demographic.
them?
Okay.
No,
If
no, you can't. You can't put no, no, no.
no, what I would tell them is if you can out earn the taxes of cost of living and pay as little attention as you can to the state level politics, it's the best place to live in the world, especially the Central Coast. But you got to do both those things because you got to earn a lot of money here to live even an upper middle class lifestyle. So if you're a lawyer and you're doing reasonably well, business owner that's doing reasonably well, farmer doing reasonably well, doctor, like people, greatest place to live ever. Just if you pay too much attention to state level politics, you'll lose your mind. But if you can out earn it and you'll buy a home, because real estate does nothing but go up here with a couple dips here and there.
But you
You
know
know,
what I deduce from that? Is deduce the right word? I, it's like, okay, Mr. Cunningham, sir, it sounds like California is a really cool place to live, but I, I'm going to have to work my ass off and not get as much for it other than some sunshine and beautiful spaces and some wine. I'll tell you, I'll tell you,
I don't think you're wrong.
my own daughter, she's in her 30s now. She bought her first home a few years ago. And I will tell you, I won't ask you to guess. I ask everybody to guess, and nobody likes guessing, so I don't want to be a hole about it. But so I won't ask you to guess. I'll tell you that she paid $48,000 for her first home in Battle Creek, Michigan, and it wasn't a rundown, home. It was one of those post World War II homes. That's good shape, decent neighborhood. $48,000 for a home, and she moving to California as an occupational therapist wouldn't make that much more coming to California. She's not, she would love to be here, but there's no way.
My sister's a teacher and she lives in Phoenix for the same reason. And she grew up here. Yeah. I mean, I hear that and it's not good. I don't like it. And that's something we as a Californian, I'm not saying we as a Republican or we as a Democrat, although they have all the power. So
But
uh, that
Jordan,
needs
with
to be
time,
changed.
the state is not. Eventually, all the rich old people like Clive will be dead.
They live longer and longer, though, Mark. It'll
I
take a
know,
while.
which is a burden on the system. So Medi-Cal is going to go bust. Medicare is going to go bust. Who's going to pay for all these people? And by the way, you know as well as I do because you've been around. We don't have enough people to even take care of the aging population in California. People like my daughter who are in healthcare, they ain't coming here.
I have a story that I've shared for years and years that's similar to your daughter's situation. I have a buddy who does recruitment of doctors for a hospital system. And he's like, every year in January, I get a phone call or multiple phone calls from doctors in the Midwest that are like, oh, I see you have an opening. I'd like to, there's a medical practice I'm interested in there. Like, the weather's amazing. And they're calling because it's the winter in the Midwest and they're losing their damn minds because they haven't been outdoors in a month and they're freezing. And then he goes, okay, yeah, we'd love to potentially set you up here. That'd be wonderful. We need doctors. We've got a shortage. Da, da, da. And then he tells them how much they'd make. And it isn't much more than what they make in the Midwest. And then he tells them, of that 5,000 square foot house you have, that the amount you paid for that would get you a 1,200 square foot condo on the Central Coast of California. And he's like, I can't get him to move here. I can't get him to move here. Right. So, I mean, that's the trade off, right? I mean, California is a rough place to live, I think, for people that, um, don't make a ton of money. I mean, it's just, there's no, and
Well,
I don't
I
think
guess,
that's not changing tomorrow either. I mean, that's going to take a long
I guess
time.
that's my question to you. And I know you don't really have a crystal ball. You can't really see into the future. But at one point, does it become unsustainable? And the number of people, literally, I mean, 10,000 people a day, age 65 plus, are dying. 10,000 people a day, not just in California. I'm talking about, in the country. But we have a lot of people in California. And not only are people leaving, as you said, fleeing the state, but they're dying. And I don't know where the tax base is going to come from.
Isn't that Margaret Thatcher's famous quote? The trouble with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money.
I think that's what she said,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, yeah.
Eventually,
Yeah.
you run out of other people's money, don't you?
Yeah.
But
You know
now,
what,
but
Mark?
look at
You don't need to do the English accent. We got a real one, okay? Although
I
sounds like transatlantic. Sorry, what were you going to say, Jordan?
Be a dick.
well, I mean, Sacramento's answer is let's put a billionaire tax on the ballot. Let's do let's extend uh extend the sales tax again. Let's extend the high income 1% surcharge. Like, there's kind of no upper limit to the money that they want the government to be paid to quote unquote fix these problems.
Well, and then
That's
maybe you can speak to this. I'll just make this very brief. I was at a conference, a healthcare conference, and the organization that I'm doing some work for is trying to get a bill passed in Sacramento. And it basically is to increase Medi-Cal spending for private duty nursing, particularly for children, so that ailing children don't have to stay in the hospital. These are really sick kids, but they can go home and they can be taken care of at home by a private care nurse. Okay. Now that's going to cost the state I think it's $65 million more in Medi-Cal funding, but it will save the state in year two, starting year two, I think $185 million a year. So it's at the end of the day, it's good for kids. It's good for the state. It's good, it's good for Medi-Cal. It's good for everybody. But I didn't realize this until now. And maybe you can speak to this. In the budget, they only look at this year, the budget year. They won't look at savings in year two. It has to work out in year one. Otherwise, no go.
the California budget. If you ran a publicly traded company the way they do accounting in the California budget, you would go to prison. It's the most nonsensical thing you've ever seen. But so that doesn't surprise me. And it also doesn't surprise me. You probably have, the California Nurses Association opposing it. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the particular bill you're talking about.
Even Newsom's own official budget, they're disagreeing with his description of where the budget is in terms of being balanced. I mean, and I don't think California has filed kind of proper audited taxes for 2-3 years, that's passed. So, yeah, I mean, it just goes back to, well, hey, listen, you know what? People get the government they deserve. So why? Because people vote for the government they get. So, Mark, we're close to 1 hour into this. We got to get to your quick fire. Before we get there, a question that one of our listeners sent to us to ask. I'm not going to give his name out, but suffice it to say he is about to run for office of a mayoral position. And his question, was, is the two-party system, reality or institutional fraud? I mean, actually, the two-party system, democratic reality, political myth, or institutional fraud. I mean, do we really have a competitive two-party democracy, or have structural, financial, and political forces created a system that limits meaningful voter choice? I mean, I've been on about this for years. I think multi-party systems are these days much more representative. But California is uniquely well positioned to stop that from happening. I mean, it's almost impossible to get a new party on registered here in California. Do you think that would help solve the problem if we encouraged more parties, Jordan?
I don't know. I don't. There are so many, like where you have a parliamentary system, right? Like if you're going to vote for the Green Party or the Liberal Democrats or whatever, the new party, the Reform Party or Reform UK, whatever that party is, like you're not wasting a vote because like if they get 6%, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but roughly if like they get a 6% vote share, they're going to get something like 6% of seats, or
No, it's
there's like a
exactly no.
proportionality.
No, there's no proportionality. That's the point. You can get the Reform Party that you mentioned. I think they got 14% of the vote, and they have 6 seats in a House of 600. So no,
Okay,
it's
then
not
it's
It's
it's even more goofy and screwed up than I thought. I don't
yeah, no, it's
but
totally screwed up. I
they're
mean,
but they're
they've got the Labour Party have a 400, I think 350 seat majority. So they basically it's like California. They got 35% of the vote and have 70% of the seats.
okay. I mean, there are institutional campaign finance benefits that the two major parties have. There's branding benefits that sometimes don't help us as Republicans in California. Um, if you go try to do a startup party, like you need to get candidates to run as that rather than as a Republican or Democrat, where you're instantly advantaged if you carry one of the major party labels, in that you get a low information base vote. Like there are voters that will just vote Republican or Democrat every time, and they don't need to know much more about your platform or anything. So um,
That's even
the
assuming you
the
can get on
top
the ballot as a
the
party, though.
top
I
two
mean,
runoff, yeah, the top
yeah,
two runoff, by the way, for everything but presidential races in California, like virtually assures that it's going to be either a Republican or Democrat, because there's only the top two candidates go into the general election. Like the American Independent or the Green or whatever, like if they don't get in the top two in the primary, they're off the ballot entirely. So that's another reform that the voters passed that people are having misgiving about now, I think. But the top two primary has even embedded the power with the two major parties. I mean, I think it would take a nationally driven, like somebody like an Arnold Schwarzenegger type level of stature and fame and influence and money to say, we want a third party. But then is that a center left, center right party, center party? Or do you have a center left party? Do you need a third and a fourth party to kind of capture?
Elon Musk.
Because,
Elon Musk could do it. He's got the
well,
money.
he's got the money. He's got the money.
He's got the
Yeah.
name recognition. He's got the fame.
yeah.
I
But
mean, Perot did pretty well, right, in polling.
He
But
sure
I mean,
did.
how many states did he win in the Electoral College? Yeah. So, the system, I think, is like, could there be a better system? Yeah, probably. I'm sure there could be. But I could argue I'm a big fan of the Electoral College. Like I think it's a good thing. And by the way, it's in the Constitution. So if you don't like that, you've got to go amend it out. So good luck.
Well, the Democrats don't like it
Yeah.
only when it doesn't work for them. I mean, when it works for them, they're fine with it.
Yeah, they want football games to be decided on points. Unless there's fewer points, then they want it on yards, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
I'm here for football analogies. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
let's not talk
But
about
I
the
mean,
USA soccer team.
oh God, what a bad day yesterday on that. But um, I guess I'm more like kind of temperamentally a kind of an incrementalist, and I don't like things like doing, especially things that are changing constitutionally embedded procedures. Or I mean, that's kind of the threat I see posed to the nation by like the progressive left socialists. Like they want to undo, they want to pack the Supreme Court. They want to
I was,
undo the Electoral College. They want to cut through everything that has given us 250 years of a stable democracy because they didn't like one election result. And I think that's really dangerous.
the Supreme Court thing is the one that really bothers me a lot. To pack it just because they aren't getting the decisions that they want. Well, then they got when they wanted the other day because Trump got beat on one, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think. I mean, yeah, I think the trouble with the Supreme Court is so powerful because Congress is so weak.
And the Supreme Court's basically like in all these decisions, like trying to force Congress to decide stuff.
Yes,
they're like, no, you do this. We don't want to.
Yeah,
we don't want to
exactly.
rewrite laws. We want you to pass a better law, and
Yeah.
Congress still doesn't do that,
Still
right?
doesn't, yeah. So, and I think, and unless we forget, as I recall, the founding fathers warned us that a two-party system would be detrimental to the United States of America. Mark, you have some quick-fire questions for our guest, Mr. Cunningham.
Well, let me grab him here. Hold on. Are you ready, Mr. Cunningham?
I was born ready.
I bet you were. Okay, ready? Lightning round. Here are the questions. You get to have coffee with one historical Californian. Who would it be?
Ronald Reagan.
Finish this sentence. California works best when?
George Duke Majan was governor. Took me a minute. I think I got it right in under 10 seconds.
Okay.
Wait. For our listeners, wait. We have to. George who? Because, I mean,
Duke
I think
Majan, he was Republican governor in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
In the heyday of California.
The 80s were great. Reagan, Duke Majan. Oh, my God. Okay, here we go. Next question, Mr. Cunningham. One law you'd repeal tomorrow.
I don't know if I'd repeal it entirely, but we got to reform CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. It is used as an impediment to building anything, and it's just got to be changed if we ever want to catch up on housing and energy supply and every other damn thing.
Clive, that's where the no culture is coming from that we talked about last week. The no culture from whatever he just said.
Yes.
No.
CEQA, they weaponize CEQA and use it to stop projects. And it's abused.
Okay, let's work on that. Next question. One law you'd pass tomorrow.
I would dust off. In fact, there's still versions of it today, but I would dust off my AB 2408 in 2022, which would have imposed liability on social media companies that knowingly designed algorithms to addict children where the children were armed. And there are still versions of that have not made it to the governor yet, but that fight's continuing on, and that is a righteous cause to me. And we let a handful of big tech companies conduct a massive social experiment on the minds of children, and they caused immeasurable generational harm. And I think it's a moral travesty. So that's what I would.
That's a bill that you authored?
Yeah, me and Democrat Buffy Wicks from Berkeley. And we had that one, and then the age appropriate design code bill that is tied up in the Ninth Circuit in the courts right now. But
explain
one of them got passed.
Explain that bill to our listeners.
Basically, requires if you have anything online, whether it's an app or a website or whatever, and you allow children to access it, which is basically anything online, you have to default the child. You have to have age verification software and default it into the highest privacy settings for the kids.
That's Mark, but so Jordan, we have to, we're going to have some more conversations on that, because I think we could have, I've just written a piece for a UK paper about, I'm totally against social media bans for for children under 16. But I agree
I
with
don't
you.
like it. I don't like bans either.
Bans either. But
Yeah.
anyway, maybe the
Yeah.
courts. I mean, what Meta just lost that case, didn't they, down in LA? So I mean, I think good for you. Definitely an issue that needs addressing, and they should listen to you. Anyway,
Okay.
go on.
Well,
Real quick.
I lost the early battle, but I think we're going to win the war.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Best governor in California history? Comedian.
Probably the Duke.
Or Reagan.
Maybe Reagan. But I wasn't alive when he was governor. I've just read about it in books.
Okay. Speaking of that, amazing. One book every voter should read.
Oh, God. Voter, can I modify it slightly to anybody interested in how people
Of course you can.
win
You're a
elections?
politician. When was the last time you answered any direct question, Jordan?
What It Takes by Richard Ben Kramer. And it
What
is
It Takes.
it is a book. I've read it twice in my life. It's really long, but this guy was an embedded reporter in about 8 different presidential campaigns in 1988. So the first George Bush, Biden won, Gary Hart, who flamed out when he got caught with the blonde. So it's basically like a little mini biography of all these presidential candidates in 1988. It's like one of the most interesting books, and he called it "What It Takes" because he wanted to show like what these guys running for the highest office in the land put themselves through. And
tell our
it's
listeners
just a really great read.
Tell our listeners the name of the author. What It Takes by
Richard Ben Kramer. As far as I know, it was the only book on politics he ever wrote.
Okay, two more questions, Jordan, then we'll let you out of here. Most misunderstood public figure in California?
Donald Trump.
Seriously, how can you misunderstand Donald Trump? I got to push back on that one. I mean,
They're eating
he's
the
the
cats
easiest.
and the dogs. They're eating the cats and the dogs.
You really, I mean, Jordan, do you really
I
think
but
Donald
I
Trump
say
is
that-
misunderstood?
I do at times because I think people take him literally. You should take him seriously. And I think
Not
people
literal.
take him literally and miss the fact that a lot of what he says is just joking bullshit.
I agree.
And so they don't understand that some of it's funny to people. And he came in as an outsider that had never run for office, and he was just bashing on all these politicians in 2016 when he first ran, and people watched it, and it was something different. And he could be funny, and he could be entertaining, and he's a guy who doesn't give a shit. And he says what he believes, and that's got an appeal to it, man. And you misunderstand that to your own detriment. I would say.
So you speak Trump too. I'm a Trump speaker. I understand what he's saying when he says it, and if you take him literally, you're going to hate him, literally hate him. And I get. To be honest, I get a little, and Clive knows this. Sometimes I have to turn him off because it goes too far. But
there's about 20% or so of what he says that is just cringy to me.
Yeah.
Like, just why could you just not say that? I mean, you could stop if you stop the sentence earlier.
Yeah, you don't have to say everything that comes into your head. For the love of God, if the rest of us did that, all of us would be divorced and going to hell.
I should have learned that lesson before I got divorced twice before my current delightful bride. I have to bring the soccer into it because I think this might be what you're talking about. I don't really believe that when Donald Trump picked up the phone to the president of FIFA, Mr. Infantino, and said, it wasn't really a red card, can you do something about it? I'm sure Trump...
That's not what he said.
It's not what he said?
That's not what he said.
What he said?
He asked for them to review it. He might have said, I don't think it was a red card. Will you review it? He didn't tell him to change it. I don't
think he really thought that that FIFA would review it. I think he was probably just lobbing something into a guy's lap who he knew was desperate to please daddy. And it worked. Good for him, man.
It worked for a day, and we got Balogun to play. They didn't play very well, but
It
I
was the
also heard
worst.
that the other thing Trump said is he didn't know that getting a red card meant that you were out the next game. I
didn't
just
know
learned
either.
that. I couldn't believe it. What kind of rule is that? Like, dude, that's been in soccer forever.
Yeah, but why can't they play it like hockey? You can almost kill somebody and beat the crap out of them, and you go to the box for like 2 minutes, and then you come back out and you're playing again.
Clive may disagree. I'm an American football. I grew up playing American football and baseball. I played some soccer. I love soccer. I've coached it. I'm a huge fan of the sport, but it is too damn soft. You got to let people fight for a ball. Like, it's just too soft.
I'm going to send you some video of football in the day when I started talking. I'm going to send you one game, Chelsea versus Leeds. I don't know if you've seen it. In the
I've
mud.
Not.
Oh, you're going to be. It's
were
old
they
school.
throwing elbows? I mean, were they coming in hot?
Oh, not just elbows, kneecaps. It has been. It has been cleaned up probably way too much, but yeah. It's anyway.
And you come in spikes up and you try to hurt a guy. I get it, but like, they have bubble wrapped it so much. And again, I come from a biased American football guy perspective and how I view this, but that, it's incentivized faking injuries. Like, you get rewarded for pretending to be hurt. Like, that's the part that they got to clean that up now.
Yeah, they LeBron James themselves all the time.
Yep.
I got one more question, and then Clive, you can take us out. Final question in the lightning round for Mr. Jordan Cunningham. Ready? Vance or Rubio? Go.
Rubio, although I think it's going to be Vance Rubio. I think Vance will be the nominee with Rubio on the ticket. I would prefer Rubio.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, but recognize, again, getting back to the structural reasons that the two major parties have immense advantages, right? There's another little thing where, because Vance was on the ticket with Trump as the VP, all the money that Trump will have in the presidential campaign account, Vance can use and nobody else can use it, which is why part of the reason they installed Kamala without her having to win one goddamn vote. You see? Because she got the Biden account with $500 million in it.
Yeah.
And everybody else would have had to start from zero. So
we have to have Jordan back on the show, Mark. In fact, maybe Jordan should just replace one of us, because that's an insider.
I'm not interesting enough. You guys are fun to listen to. I'm boring.
I had the equipment, so good luck.
Yeah, I'm out. Oh, God.
One more thing then, and we got to finish up because we're way past. Who on the Democratic bench? I don't see, other than what's his name, the Jewish guy from
Pennsylvania, Shapiro.
Who's on the bench that can step up for the Democrats right now? Someone that I could vote for, someone that I might look at and go, yeah, you know what, that person, yeah.
Well, the kind of Democrat that guys like you and I would potentially vote for, right, is like your Shapiro, your Bashir in Kentucky, your Jared Polis in Colorado. Like, they aren't going to win a Democratic presidential nomination. The party has moved too far left. You've got Democratic socialists knocking out longtime liberals in New York State in congressional elections. You've got Mandami pulling everybody to the left in New York City. Like, the socialists are taking over. Like, Republicans had Tea Party, then MAGA. Like, the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, are at the early innings of wholesale capture and takeover of the Democratic Party nationally. We're just seeing the beginning of it. So you can't convince me that any moderate Democrat has a shot. Joe Biden was the last one, I think, and they only went to him because they needed somebody that could possibly beat Trump.
But Jordan,
and he was like the best.
How are they going to get the independents? with moving so far to the left. I just don't see and I'm not, thank God I'm not a political advisor. No one would win. I just don't see how they're going to get independents to vote for the far.
Yeah, well, you drill down on polling, there's fewer split ticket voters than ever, and there's fewer than you think. So, like, that's sort of why in the presidential cycle, like, both parties have been running a fire people up and turn out your base strategy, right? Like, that's kind of what's been happening, because if you can get more, there are a lot of registered Republicans, Democrats that only vote in presidential elections. 1 out of every 4 elections, they're casting a vote. They show up and vote for that. They don't even turn their ballots in the other 3 out of 4, right? So you get people like that to come out, then why do you need to win independents? It's just a math game. Like, again, they're all fighting over the 50-yard line. They're trying to win by a half yard. And it's unfortunate. I would not, I'm going to say this right now on your show, and I'm not saying I hope for it. I would not rule out Gavin Newsom as the Dem nominee. I would not rule it out. Like, because you think it's going to be about his record in California, but it's not. It's going to be about.
I'm looking for a rope to hang myself right now. That smarmy little bastard. Who's going to vote for him? The slick back hair and he
little old lady Democrats in Iowa, bro.
Oh,
like, they're going to be like, oh, he looks like a movie star, and he's saying the right things about the environment and climate change and reproductive health. Like, that's
Social Security.
I think Newsom's got at least as good of a chance as Kamala, because I mean, she already blew it. So, like, something, at least he's something different. And he's been setting this up for a long time. And the guy's not without political skill.
Oh,
he's very flexible. He can kind of talk in circles about anything. He's sort of mastered that art of, like, literally just running the clock out and speaking in this circular fashion without really even saying anything or taking a position.
He's got a certain rhythm, and he knows how to.
The hand gesture stuff, like, all that,
yeah.
He's been practicing in the mirror since I think he was 17 years old for this. And,
no question. No question. And his shit does not stink.
Yeah, but the Dems have, it's interesting because there aren't that many other than Kamala who, like, have a national profile. Like, it's him or her. They're the only 2 potential Dem candidates for president in the next cycle that are already nationally pretty well known. Like, you couldn't even remember Shapiro's name, right? Like, he's got a lot of work to do.
Took an Englishman to remember that.
Bashir, have you heard of him? Like,
yeah, I've heard of him, but if you pressed me on the name, I wouldn't be able to do it. And the governor of Michigan too, and I'm originally from Michigan. I can't even think of her name.
Meg Whitman.
This is a Whitmer, right?
Yeah,
Whitmer.
There you go. See, look, guys, you should be ashamed of yourself. I got to ask one question quickly. Can Steve Hilton win the governorship?
Can he? Yeah. Do I think it's likely? Really? No.
Okay.
Not this cycle. Probably not. But look, I mean,
he's young. He's got time.
You start as a Republican in California running against a Democrat in California, running statewide. You literally start 20 points behind, like, just on base vote, party registration. 20 points is a lot in a state of millions and millions and millions of voters. You give Steve Hilton $50 million and, he could do a lot of damage. And maybe there's a scandal last minute. I mean, you never know, man. Politics is not like a linear, straight line, predictable thing.
Interesting.
Like, a lot of weird things happen. So I don't ever rule out. The only thing I can tell you with absolute certainty about this gubernatorial race is I won't be winning it because I'm not running in it.
Yeah, well, no, we already set that. We already sent that plan, but maybe in 3 cycles' time, Steve wins in 4 years, and then you're his protege.
What I'm
Anyway,
excited about with Steve is I like the direction he's taking the messaging, and he's shown himself to the Califortability thing, however you say it. Like he had the golden ticket, which not enough people knew what that was, but I think he's got a good message for the current California electorate, and it's something a little different than the national message. And if he has the resources he seems like a very competent guy. I've never actually met him in person, but if he has the resources to make that cut through, and voters are kind of tired of the mess we're in, who knows, man?
chance.
Who knows?
I put some money on him at the odds he's got at the moment. But he's an impressive operator. And he's no shrink. I mean, and he knows how to throw the elbows, to go back to our soccer analogy. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us. This has been our first real hour, and it's gone on for an hour and 22 minutes. So we thank you for that. I think
Cut out all the parts where I sound stupid in editing. And then next time we do it,
we wouldn't have a show, Jordan.
Dang it. Next time, let's do it with gin. I'll bring you a bottle of decent gin.
Okay, excellent. All right. Jordan, don't go anywhere. Hang on for technical reasons. But Jordan Cunningham, thank you very much for joining us here on In Search of Sanity. You have proven to our listeners that there are some sane politicians and political commentators out there. And that gives us hope for the future. Now let's leave it there. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me, guys.